Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself warns against the instinct to isolate oneself in times of danger, uncertainty, or when faced with potential threats. While fortresses, both literal and metaphorical, may seem like a safe haven, a retreat into them is actually a strategy that invites isolation, vulnerability, and ultimately weakness. By closing yourself off from the outside world, you cut yourself off from vital information, resources, and connections that are essential for maintaining and exercising power. In reality, the more you isolate yourself, the more dependent you become on the fortress itself, and the less control you have over the world outside of it. At its core, this law speaks to the dangers of insulating oneself too much. Building a fortress, whether it's physical walls, a tight-knit circle of advisors, or even an isolated mental state, seems like a logical response to threats. When you feel attacked or exposed, the instinct is often to retreat, to create a barrier between yourself and potential enemies. But what you lose in this defensive posture is the ability to respond dynamically to changing circumstances. Inside your fortress, you might feel secure, but outside, the world continues to move and evolve without you, and that is where real power is negotiated. Isolation not only disconnects you from the flow of information, but also makes you an easier target. In a fortress, you are stuck in one place, visible to all, and those who wish to see your downfall know exactly where to find you. Worse still, the longer you remain isolated, the less attuned you become to the nuances of the world around you. A leader who isolates themselves becomes disconnected from the people, their desires, and the shifting dynamics of power. You become ignorant to emerging threats and opportunities alike, and your influence dwindles because you are no longer part of the active power play. This law is also a caution against trusting too much in your defenses. Whether the fortress is a physical stronghold, a rigid corporate structure, or a heavily guarded social circle, the more you rely on your defenses, the more brittle your position becomes. Strong defenses give the illusion of invincibility, but they can also be circumvented, breached, or weakened over time. In warfare, history has shown that the strongest fortresses can be starved out, surrounded, or rendered irrelevant by new tactics. Similarly, in personal or professional life, isolation invites cunning enemies to work around your defenses, often in ways you cannot anticipate because you are too removed from the action. Power, by its nature, thrives in fluidity, adaptability, and connection. Power is not something you can wall yourself away from the world to protect. It needs to be constantly nurtured, expanded, and tested. By building a fortress, you stunt your ability to grow because you close off new alliances, new information, and new opportunities. Power requires a constant pulse on the surrounding environment, on the ambitions, rivalries, and movements of others. Without this, you become stagnant, unable to adapt, and ultimately fall behind those who are still actively engaged in the arena of power. There is also a social dimension to this law. Power is deeply tied to relationships and influence over others. To hold power, you must be present, visible, and engage with the people you aim to lead or influence. When you withdraw into a fortress, you risk being forgotten or losing your relevance. People begin to form their own alliances, make their own decisions, and create new power structures while you remain disconnected. In essence, the more you remove yourself from the social fabric, the less influence you have over it. You cannot lead or command from behind walls. Leadership requires participation in the everyday flow of events, decisions, and interactions. A fortress mentality also makes you more vulnerable to fear. When you are isolated, small threats appear larger, and the uncertainty outside the walls feels more dangerous than it truly is. You start to lose perspective, imagining that the world is more hostile than it actually is, simply because you are no longer part of it. This amplifies your sense of paranoia and makes you more likely to react defensively or aggressively, even when such actions may not be necessary. By staying out in the open and remaining engaged with the world, you not only see threats more clearly, but also understand them in context, allowing you to respond with intelligence rather than fear. Furthermore, isolating yourself invites others to conspire against you. When you close yourself off, people begin to wonder what you're hiding or why you're so distant. This can breed suspicion and even encourage rebellion. Others may sense weakness in your isolation, believing that you are hiding because you fear confrontation or lack the strength to engage with the world. Worse, enemies may band together, emboldened by your retreat. Isolation, then, not only weakens your own position, but also gives your enemies more confidence to strike, as they sense your growing detachment from reality. By contrast, a person of power who remains visible and active, engaging with allies and rivals alike, demonstrates strength and resilience. Power is fluid and thrives on interaction. You do not need to be aggressive or domineering to maintain it, but you must be present. Being out in the open shows that you are not afraid of opposition and that you are confident in your ability to navigate the challenges that come your way. It allows you to build new alliances, neutralize threats before they become serious, and stay attuned to shifts in the power dynamic. This keeps you adaptable, informed, and in control. It is also essential to understand that presence itself can be a source of power. By being accessible, you make it harder for enemies to demonize or conspire against you. When people can see you, talk to you, and interact with you, they are less likely to view you as an enemy. Isolation, on the other hand, fosters alienation and makes it easier for people to rally against you. Staying engaged with others disarms much of the animosity that might otherwise build up if you were seen as a distant or aloof figure. By remaining active in the world, you can win over potential adversaries, build trust, and create a network of allies who are invested in your success. In summary, Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself warns against the seductive instinct to retreat from the world and create barriers around yourself. While isolation might seem like a form of security, it actually breeds vulnerability, ignorance, and weakness. Power is inherently dynamic, requiring constant interaction, visibility, and adaptability. To maintain power, you must stay engaged with the world, understanding that influence depends on your ability to navigate relationships, gather information, and respond to change. A fortress may seem like a safe haven, but it is actually a trap, one that leads to isolation, irrelevance, and ultimately defeat.